Why modern miracle amendments are lies is not a phrase meant to provoke outrage. It's a statement rooted in soil science, field observation, and honestly, decades of quiet failures buried under glossy marketing. Gardeners are promised instant fertility, explosive growth, and living soil in a bottle. Yet, more often than not, many end up with weaker plants, depleted beds, and a cycle of dependency that just never seems to end. The real scam isn't always the product itself, but, well, the idea that soil health can be shortcut with concentrated inputs. Why does the promise of instant soil health appeal to gardeners? Most gardeners genuinely want to do right by their plants. When leaves yellow or growth stalls, it feels urgent, almost like something has to be done straight away. Modern miracle amendments step into that emotional gap with bold claims and honestly pretty simplified explanations. A scoop, a spray, or a pour is marketed as the missing piece your soil supposedly lacks. The problem is that soil doesn't function like a nutrient tank that runs empty and just gets refilled. It's a living system shaped by biology, structure, moisture, and time. Products that ignore this reality might deliver a temporary visual response, but they really fail to build lasting fertility. Why do concentrated amendments disrupt soil biology? Soil microbes operate on balance, not abundance. When high concentrations of nutrients or isolated compounds are added, microbial communities shift, and they do so quite rapidly. Fast-growing bacteria surge, consuming oxygen and tying up nutrients, while slower, beneficial organisms are crowded out. Plants might respond with rapid leaf growth, but honestly, roots often become shallow and dependent. Over time, soil loses aggregation, water infiltration declines, and nutrient cycling slows. What looked like improvement, well, eventually becomes fragility. Why do bottled beneficial microbes rarely colonize soil? Many miracle amendments boast proprietary microbial blends, claiming to re-engineer soil life. In reality, most introduced microbes just fail to establish themselves. Native soil organisms are already adapted to local conditions, temperature swings, moisture cycles, and root exudates. When foreign strains are dumped in, they either die off quickly or disrupt existing communities without providing any lasting benefit. The gardener is then encouraged to reapply, creating dependency instead of resilience. This is not soil building, it is, quite simply, soil renting. So let's talk about why nutrient-heavy boosters can actually mask deeper problems in your garden. You know, yellow leaves, poor growth, and low yields are often blamed on nutrient deficiencies. But honestly, the real issue is frequently poor soil structure or inactive biology. Miracle amendments, well, they treat symptoms, not causes. Adding more nutrients to compacted, lifeless soil is a bit like pouring fuel into a car with a broken engine. Sure, plants may green up briefly, but the underlying dysfunction, it just remains. And over time, repeated applications only worsen the imbalance, leading to salt buildup, pH drift, and reduced microbial diversity. Now let's consider why herbs and vegetables in particular tend to suffer the most from over-amendment. Many edible plants, you see, evolved to thrive in moderate, stable soils. Herbs especially, they really respond poorly to excess feeding. Over-amended soil often produces lush but weak growth, diluted flavor, and, unfortunately, increased susceptibility to pests. The irony here is that gardeners seeking healthier plants often end up achieving the opposite by following miracle amendment advice. True strength that comes from steady nutrient cycling, not forced growth. So why do traditional soil-building practices consistently outperform modern products? Well, compost, mulch, cover crops, and, yes, time. They're not exactly exciting, but they absolutely work. These practices feed soil organisms gradually, improve structure, and help stabilize moisture levels. Nutrients are released in sync with plant needs, rather than dumped all at once. This is actually why older gardens so often outperform newly amended beds. They are biologically mature systems, not just chemically propped environments. Why does marketing language hide the real cost, you might wonder? Words like boost, activate, and unlock sort of imply that soil is broken until, well, the product arrives. This framing, it really shifts responsibility away from poor management and onto an imagined deficiency that only the product can fix. The cost, however, is not just financial, it's actually the loss of trust in natural processes and the erosion of gardening skills that are rooted in observation and patience. The more gardeners rely on miracle solutions, the less they learn to read their soil. Why can't soil health be rushed? True soil improvement honestly happens slowly, often invisibly. It shows up in how soil crumbles in your hand, how water soaks in instead of running off, and how plants recover from stress without intervention. These changes, they just can't be bottled. They're really the result of consistent, gentle practices that allow soil life to organize itself over time. Any product claiming to replace this process is, well, selling an illusion. Why is the real solution understanding, not buying? The way forward isn't about rejecting all amendments, but rather using them wisely and sparingly. Amendments should support biology, not override it. They should work with local conditions, not promise universal results. Most importantly, gardeners must shift from asking what product to add to asking what the soil actually needs to regain balance. Why are modern miracle amendments really lies? Because in truth they sell speed in a system that rewards patience. Healthy soil isn't built by hacks, boosters, or shortcuts. It's built by restraint, observation, and respect for the living world beneath our feet. When gardeners reclaim that understanding, the scam sort of collapses on its own and the soil begins to heal.